Well, it is 7 o'clock. I'm going to pop us on to our pre-song show that was done by our very own Aerowolf.
It's tunes.
And we are ready to get the show started.
All right, welcome to the Golden Glory Podcast, the bi-weekly MMO show that dives beneath the surface, asks the hard questions, and uncovers how you, the player, can maximize your impact in-game. Our current focus is the upcoming MMORPG from Artcraft Entertainment, Crowfall. This is episode 3, and we're broadcasting live on Tuesday, February 10th, 2015. And, of course, this week we do bring back our regular cast. Hey, guys, how's it going? Rez, the economist. What's happening, buddy?
Not much. Still trying to just absorb all of this news that keeps flying out of the door.
Soak it all in. Soak it all in. Yes. Absolutely. And, of course, we have Lethality, the trade master. What you been up to?
How's my hair look? Does it look all right?
It looks amazing. A little more conditioner, maybe.
Okay. All right. Next week.
A little Head and Shoulders, maybe. I don't know.
Perfect. Good.
All right. And, of course, last but not least, we have Chief Sarkhan, the completionist. What's happening, Chief?
Howdy, howdy, folks. It's been a wonderful week. Lots and lots of information to digest, and we can't wait to tear it apart in today's show.
Absolutely. Of course, I am Aerowolf, and I picked my own title, The Virtuous Hero, because I like to win. No, I like to find ways to be heroic on the battlefield, of course. I have actually been playing quite a few games. I've been doing a little bit of streaming of WoW lately. But actually this morning I did reinstall Star Wars Old Republic. And I'm kind of liking what I'm hearing out of BioWare with some of the cool focuses they're putting on the games. So I think that is pretty cool. With introductions out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into some of the most recent news that we've had. So kind of a new segment to the podcast, the G&G News Desk. So here is the latest in Crowfall news, keeping everybody up to speed. First of all, last week was Hunger Week.
So hungry.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, some people were a little hungry after the week, though. So even though we got some nice pieces of information, not everybody heard everything they wanted to. Of course, we do know that the big reveal is going to be happening here in a couple of weeks. But on Monday, of course, we did get introduced to the whole concept of Eternal Heroes and Dying Worlds, which is where creative director J. Todd Coleman introduced how each world will kind of go through the seasonal cycle. We spent some time talking about this last week as the hunger advances and begins to change the environment. Of course, we got to see that video, which is really cool, which we'll talk about in a minute. Then on Tuesday, the Templar was introduced, and on Wednesday, we're given the Founders Update, where we learned that Crowfall, of course, has several different funding options, but it's going to have a crowdfunding option. What did you guys think of that? Crowdfunding. Were you shocked at this? Did that really surprise you?
No,
guys?
I think that's what the counter corresponds to.
Yeah.
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 I was hilarious in reading the forums where someone was saying, I think they're going to announce crowdsourcing at the end of this huge countdown clock. And I'm like going, well, they're a couple days early then.
Yeah, they 3 weeks early.
A couple days early.
Now, according to the official forums, we will hear more about the way the funding will happen before that page counter hits 0. In addition, a campaign, frequently asked questions, was introduced. To shed some more light on how world campaigns will work in Crowfall. And then on Thursday, the Fey Assassin was introduced. The Fey Assassin. That was a lot of people really like this idea. In fact, a lot of my friends I know just said, yes, that's what I'm going to be. Any of you guys going to play the Fey Assassin, or you're still kind of waiting for your thing?
Is it a Fey assassin, or is it just an assassin?
Don't go there.
That's a whole conversation we're going to get to.
What are you doing?
Well, it depends on what day you looked at the page, doesn't it? Because it seems to be It seemed to be, and there's some debate on the forums about this, but it seemed to be that one day on one day we saw the race names with the archetypes, and then the next day we didn't. Now, there's some debate on whether or not they disappeared or not, but I think it's very interesting. Just on a side note, I do know that some of the races will have multiple archetypes because we know that there's human Templars, there's human Knights, right? So it'll be interesting to see. You're right. Is it a Fey assassin or is it just an assassin? Very interesting.
If it's just an assassin and it has stealth, that does, meet my need to go steal people's resources. But
stay out of my cupboards, dude. Stay out of my
not a huge, we'll see.
Well, see, I was reading those forum posts about, hey, they took the race off of the grid, right? But if you look at the forums, the categories are still based on those original titles. It says Fey Assassin, it says Highborn, so and so, and
right.
Those are still the forum categories. They just took it off that grid because I'm thinking that each of those archetypes can be used by multiple races. So why would you put it there? The pictures were just the original, or the initial.
Damn your logic.
Example.
I would rather rage a bit than have Chief just talk me off a ledge before the show even starts.
You rage crafting. That's what you're here to rage for.
Oh boy, I think we're definitely looking at some more Henri's rages coming up very soon. Of course, Friday. They also last week introduced us to an NPC in the winter stage of transformation. That was presented to us in our first glimpse at an NPC animation. Now, I'm one of these geeks that just like, video, this is a historic moment. This is the first time we've seen something animated. And then, of course, there were some folks like, that's it? An NPC idle animation? I don't know. I geek out about that stuff. I think that stuff's pretty cool. So I liked it. And then it was kind of a quiet weekend. And then today, of course, there was the introduction of the Knight archetype. That backstory, though.
Oh, my God.
Did you guys see that backstory?
Depressing. He was the anti-paladin, but not having to be undead like something out of World of Warcraft, for Christ's sakes. I'm happy to see a plain old, maybe not having a great day guy who wears plate mail.
Well, then, yeah, because the Knight, it sounded like he kind of liked being alive. So it's interesting how the backstory, like he was alive and had a life, and now he's this god that's somehow separate from his life, and he is kind of depressed about it. I remember how it used to feel, when I was. It's like this gothic look. So it's not a paladin. It's not somebody who's standing up fighting for the light. He's like, you hold him down.
Well, considering the entire world is shadowed in this darkness and decay and hunger, who's standing up for the light really? Everybody ends up dead if they're not careful.
Yeah. Like he's kind of an emo a little bit. He's a little emo. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that really gets us caught up on the news for this week. Now, if you're interested, and those of you listening or watching this, there is still time to go to the official site and sign up to get into the beta. And we don't know when the beta is. Is it weeks away, months away, years away? Who knows? But right now, if you go to crowfall.com to the main page, you sign up to get on the site. There's still only about 13,000 people or so in the forum signed up. So there's a lot of room for you to get on the front end of this thing. Go over to the site, log in, and get into a beta group and play with us. So, and Chief, for those of you watching live, Chief just went ahead and put that in chat for us. So that is all from the G&G News Desk. On with the show. Now, our first topic and our main topic for today, of course, we've been promising this topic for the last couple weeks. We want to talk about crafting. Now, we were talking about the title of this particular podcast, the crafting Henri's came up with. I personally like the Craftnado. That was the name I liked. The
Craft-pocalypse. Craft-pocalypse.
Craft-pocalypse. So let's talk about crafting, because honestly, it was the crafting that grabbed a lot of people's attention when we heard that Ralph Koster was involved, and we saw the way he was introducing crafting and how he was, and we know the games that he's been a part of. So let's talk about, first of all, before we dive too much into the speculation, let's talk about what we know so far to kind of get us all caught up on what we know about crafting in Crowfall. Tully likes Craftnado, so thank you for that affirmation. So I want to say this. I came up with that. I'm taking credit for that right now. Craftnado, that's mine. So, all right. So let's talk about what we know. Okay. First of all, here's what we know. Crafting will be hugely important in Crowfall. Here's a quote from the FAQ. Crafting is a central part of the player-driven economy in Crowfall. Open-ended economic systems are tough to pull off. The closest model to ours is probably EVE Online, though you can see the ways in which it ties to ideas that were originally in Ultima Online, Star Wars Galaxies, and Shadowbane. In fact, I know, Chief, you wrote an article over at MMORPG.com just recently where you did talk about the similarities to to EVE Online. In fact, I believe it was J. Todd Coleman said you were right on, or was it Gordon Walton? I don't remember.
It was J. Todd. He said, "Nailed it."
Nailed it. Yes, and you did, dude. You did because you did a very good job in that article to really talk about that similarity. Now, here's what I want to talk. That's the statement that we just talked about. Kind of where Crowfall Crafting comes from. What are your gut reactions from that statement, or how is it different from other economic systems you've seen in MMOs? Bill, what do you think? What's your gut reaction to that?
Well, first thing is, there's not too many games, and the group of us together have more or less followed the last few major releases, but none of them really came out of the gate with a punch like that about crafting. Talking about it as one of the first or second reveals, it's usually something that's a bullet point at best, and then at some point down the road, it gets minimized to a lot less than whatever even crazy hopes we had. So for me, that's what really stuck out. To talk about it as an important thing, to see someone like Raph Koster brought in to work on that design and some other designs. I think that's the biggest thing. So I'm hoping that it has, like I've said in earlier episodes, it really crafters have to be first class citizens in the world, just like combat characters, I think. And with them leading with that 1-2 punch so far, I feel really good about it. So that to me is what I like so far.
No, I agree with you 100% on that because honestly, we've all heard promises. We've all, especially pre-launch communities, it's kind of normal for developers to find out what we're going to fish this pond for customers, for gamers. Let's find the bait that they're going to hook onto. Let's find the bait. And so it is normal for devs to say things that people like. But I think on this one, when you look at who's involved, and yes, this type of crafting system is hard to pull off, a completely player-driven economy. And I'd say, had I not heard who was involved in this game, I probably wouldn't have considered it something that could really happen. I know a lot of MMO gamers are hungering for something that brings back that player-driven aspects. But I remember, I think the world of John Smedley. I respect the guy. I love a lot of their products. I play a lot of their games at Daybreak Games now, we call it. It's not SOE anymore. But I remember when he was kind of talking about, hey, I've got a game that a lot of the Star Wars Galaxy players are going to want to play. And it turned out to be H1Z1. And a lot of those players were like, what?
Yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
I just tore up my shirt and made a bag.
Yeah, so again, we're used to developers saying things. The question is, can it be pulled off? Can it be pulled off? And honestly, one of the reasons why I'm all in at this point on Crowfall is because I'm really hoping if anybody can pull it off, these guys can.
Without a doubt.
I'm going to go back to the original question and what is my gut reaction? And first, let me say I've always been a little concerned about my gut. So in real life. And, in regards to Crowfall, because, I've been reading a lot of nuances into this game, and they've just not been declared yet. Referencing Star Wars Galaxies, well, there is some Star Wars Galaxies crafting that I thought was a little unnecessary and a little monotonous. I thought when you struck it great, it was awesome, but, maybe some of the sales aspects of it, how do I get my item into someone else's hands? So just referencing Star Wars Galaxies or just referencing ease, Crowfall, the team has been great. They're making mix of articles and these cryptic reveals, and they're just making my assumptions build and build and build. So I'm hopeful that we see some more depth, like the pre-alpha alloy system. We see some more depth on the actual crafting screen to help put some of these assumptions in order so we can continue the excitement and reasonable hype. Because, a good crafting game is not sustainable, unless it's so well thought out and they get a lot of good people in there testing early. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I think just back to that since again, they're right out of the gate with this. I believe my gut tells me that it's a big focus, and the whole design is going to hinge on that. So pretty exciting.
And one last thing is that one of my other gut is can they avoid reacting to the complaints of the community by changing their core philosophy, because initial polling shows no, we want creatures to drop. That squirrel dropped an amazing sword, instead of dropping teeth and some nuts, And so I just hope that we can avoid that this team can avoid the reacting to the Care Bear crying community about dropping stuff. Stay focused on their core direction.
So what are we going out to do today, guys? We're going to go out with Anres. We're going to go farm some squirrel nuts.
I think that can be the title of this episode.
You laugh and you mock, but for all you know, cooking is a thing. Cooking could be a thing.
It could be. It could be. We don't know.
You've heard of Rocky Mountain oysters, haven't you?
Unfortunately, I have. Yes.
All
so
right.
That becomes a recipe in the game. I don't know what I'm going to say.
So when we hear that crafting is going to be like Eve and like Star Wars Galaxies and Ultima Online, Franklin, what are your thoughts? What's your gut reaction on that?
So I looked at this when I first heard that they were mirroring up basically the philosophy in Eve, Star Wars Galaxies, and Shadowbane. I was taking in my mind the best piece of each of those systems. So to me, Shadowbane wasn't about crafting, but it was about map control, communities, building cities, working together as teams. You had community in a PvE aspect, right? Star Wars Galaxies was very in-depth crafting, but maybe too far so. And then you have EVE Online that is very crafting controlled. You go out, you get your ship blown up, you need resources to rebuild it. There wasn't a just go to the store and buy a new fancy sword. You needed the entire infrastructure of how the supplies work. And the thing about EVE that really gets me is it doesn't matter how minuscule or low level the ore is, you need it in your capital ship. In fact, you need a ton of it. The really expensive, hard to find, rare minerals you don't need as much of, but you need to cross the spectrum. And of what they've showed us so far in their alloy charts kind of suggests they're going down the same road. So like I put in my article, mirroring up that interdependency of crafting to fighting like Eva's got, controlling networks, building a society like Shadowbane really did, and then having a depth to crafting, which they kind of showed us in their chart, mixing and matching resources to make a recipe without having 4 billion recipes. You have a Helm recipe, and you have a bunch of different ways you can make it. I think they got a good plan, but like James said, they got to stay on target. If they loosen up their grip, they change their philosophy based on opinion, it's going to be a slippery slope to nobody wanting to play Vices, everybody wanting to play like we are now.
You're exactly right, because it's very easy at the beginning to say, hey, this game might not be for you, but then when you go to the bank and you've got no money, it might be a little bit harder to say that. So it's going to be interesting to see, how they keep to their original vision, but still remain profitable as a company and appeal to enough players that agree with the vision to make it happen. So it sounds like we all kind of agree that we love the idea, we love the concept, but we just kind of have to wait and see how it actually plays out. So now the second thing, as we're talking about what we know about Crowfall Crafting, yes, player crafting will be very, very important. The second thing that I thought was interesting that kind of jumped out at me was this. The most skilled crafters will be known by name. Again, from the frequently asked questions, the FAQ. The benefits of crafting are obvious. Your name will be known. Your items will be sought out far and wide. Whispers from other players wanting you to craft for them will never cease. Now, that sentence, I'm going to come back to that in a second. The AFK auto-reply will be your only friend. That's the goal of the crafter. It's really an exploration game, testing and tuning and building a reputation and product the other players can rely on. Now, I want to come back to that one sentence real quick. It said this. Whispers from other players wanting you to craft for them. You notice it doesn't say people will be going to an auction house and buying your items. Does that mean, I mean, that just hit me right now. Like I was reading that. I was like, interesting. The way people are going to buy items from you is they're going to seek you out. They're going to want your items. Interesting. Very interesting to me. Now, James, I know we've talked about this kind of topic in the past with other games. Sounds like a lofty goal. What's it going to take for Crowfall to pull it off?
Yeah, I mean, the whole returning the gods and, talking about triumphs while the hunger impacts, yada, yada. But, I mean, I love the concept. I love the lore. My question is will the returning players be hunting me down because I've spent the time and effort, the quality materials to be able to make the weapons and items that they need? And of course, will I then make a fake second account and, purposely lead people like Airwolf onto worlds where the loot drop rules are bad and they'll die, so then they'll need more stuff from me? Absolutely. Yes. I have no qualms about that. People will be saying, hey, is everything clear? Is everything clear over here? Damn straight it's clear. Go ahead. Oh, you need a new sword. Damn. So, I mean, I love how this reads. It reads very, again, like somebody's been spying upon my dreams. But it really is difficult to truly have a system where crafters can impact the world without being in the way of the rest of the progression, right? I mean, let's not be honest. I mean, you can't have everyone waiting in the Eternal Realms for me to hammer something out. I mean, hopefully we're able to craft all over the place. We're hoping to take our abilities on the road, and maybe crafting in different worlds with different equipment, with different materials. Maybe that makes a difference. And so maybe Aerowolf is an amazing crafter, but he likes to stay at the Eternal Realms. Onrez is willing to stand in the midst of the blood and battle on the most dangerous PvP realm and find a crafting station. No, not at all. I mean, I'm the brave one. I mean, he's usually hanging out around that.
I stay in Care Bear Land. I stay in Care Bear Land. But, I mean, in my little hut, singing Kumbaya. Yes, that's
so. Can the crafters be useful and engaged in standard play? If they can. Will skill, effort, and research of a crafter separate them from the rest of the pack? Will we die at the hands of RNG? I don't know. But if you make the metagame really matter to me, I will spend the time and effort to create the spreadsheets, create the
hey! Spreadsheets are my business, mister.
Create the websites. I will spend the time to go out there and promote it to the community because I'm really excited about what it could be. But again, it's a good paragraph, but it's still kind of vague.
Good point. Bill, what do you think? What's your thought on the idea that a player can make their name in crafting? People will be seeking you out to get your stuff.
Yeah, well, those are the exact words. Like, I think all the crafters want to hear every time, because that's kind of the fantasy. It's like, I want to be known as this craftsman, this blacksmith of legend, or whatever it's going to be. And it really hasn't, it hasn't worked out like that too often. So I think that's a really good goal. But I think there really has to be systems that do that, like James was saying. So what is that going to mean in the context of what you produce? So maybe the different worlds, do have different types of crafting station or other elements. That means if you're able to make a plate helm in one world, it has these attributes that you can't get anywhere else. But in order to do that, you're going to need the the help of a guild or whatever we're going to call them, to do that. So it kind of feeds both ways. Like if they want the best weapons, they need your skill, but they need to take you to a place where you can do it, and then kind of vice versa. So, in that regard, it's interesting because if you're, how will you? So say it's really hard to make that amazing plate helm that we keep referencing in whatever land we have to do it. So will it be a thing where, like, why would you want to make that for another guild or another player? Is it going to be very more incestuous a little bit so that you keep the best stuff for your team and your guild? And I think that could be an interesting spin too. Depending on how rare, because if it's really hard and it's really rare to do, you want to keep it for your team, so to speak, but then what does that mean for your crafting reputation? Is it maybe per faction? Does it matter more? Does everything you do as a guild count for your faction or your realm, for lack of a Camelot reference or something like that? But Yeah, I think that's what as we talk through this, and like you also mentioned too, it clicked when you said it, is how will these traders and crafters do business with each other? Is it going to be
traders
Yeah.
and caravans? I mean, it's one of the original images.
Exactly.
They showed it. They showed it. It's one of the original images that we saw a long time ago, and I'm extremely interested in that concept of location matters, resources matter, moving resources from A to B. How much can I make from that?
Yeah, without a doubt. Like a merchant, I mean, the merchant playstyle is its own thing. I mean, I might not even be a crafter or a combat. I might just be a merchant who can take things from one place to another and find someone who'll find the value in just me doing that. So it's a whole other potential.
Yeah, see, I'm the one that's accidentally moving things from A to D. See, Anres is going from A to B.
B is more profitable.
I've gone to D on accident. I went the wrong way, but that's another subject. So here's kind of my thought on this, because, for me, I always look at ways that gameplay systems impact other gameplay systems, and the whole idea of making a name for myself in the game. How do I promote myself? How do I let people know about my goods? Well, I'm going to let people know in more than just in game. If I'm going to be a crafter and I'm going to make my living in game as a crafter, I guarantee you I'm going to be on Twitter. I'm going to be on the forums. I'm going to be elsewhere. And the only thing that I can think of, and this is a very interesting problem that you guys may have some ideas on how to solve, or maybe not. But okay, so what if the source of power in the game is crafting, and this is something we've wanted. The source of power isn't going around and hitting a loot pinata until purples drop. The source of power in the game is getting your items, getting the riches, the gold and the glory, right? And going out and winning in victory. What is to stop me from under the table in a black market sense outside
Absolutely
of the
nothing.
game?
Absolutely nothing. Sell it. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you want to finish something on that?
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
For real money.
Okay, I'm still going. What? I'm sorry. What was your question?
What is to stop me from saying, hey, pay me $50 in PayPal, and I will escort and deliver items to you? Or I could say you can come pick them up. What's to stop me from saying, yeah, if you give me $50, sell me I will sell you something and come pick it up. As soon as you pick it up, my thugs go out and kill you and steal it back from you.
Did I send that email to you already? I thought I had it. I thought I just had it in draft.
I was going to say, that sounds like perfect tactics. Look at some of the massive things that have happened in real life in EVE. People go undercover for 2 years to rip them off.
Are we going to see things like this happen?
And I think it's perfectly acceptable if the systems support it.
So, to me, that's interesting how acceptable that is to you guys. It's a little bit disturbing, to be honest with you. Pay to win? Is it pay to win if the studio's not involved?
Pay for James to win, but
well, first of all, you got to be someone willing to spend the money.
Honor and concern. Oh,
hey, I'm the virtuous hero, my friend. I'm the virtuous hero.
Oh my!
I'm just taking notes.
There you go. So, Franklin, what are your thoughts on this whole concept? You could make yourself known by name in the game through your crafting, Mr. Completionist.
Well, from the completionist standpoint, I think if they set up a system that really can set yourself apart as a crafter, it's got to be in such a way that, take for example Vanguard Saga Heroes. I was the guy that was known for making jewelry. Everybody came looking to me on the server for certain types of jewelry because I was so specialized at it. And my buddy was Thatch. The only thing Thatch did was put a roof on a house. But, he was known on the entire server as being the only person that could make that thatch. So if you wanted a guild hall, you were finding him. If Crowfall does something like that and allows you to get that specialized in certain aspects of crafting, I think they'll have gold. The problem is so far they've shown us that what they've said is there's going to be a limited number of recipes, but a lot of variables in how you make it. So how can you really specialize within that? I'm a little concerned about how much breakout they can get. But on the flip side, I think however you can set yourself apart, looking at the other systems, I'm intrigued to find out, is there a way to find out who the crafter is on the other team so you can target them and interrupt
interesting concept.
their ability to craft for the other team? Or take it a step further, hold them hostage and make them craft for you.
Can I just say that this is where my mods idea come in. I've got a list of mod ideas, mainly about, you know how PvP mods show, you know, where's the healer? Where's the healer? Throw something on the healer.
Those mods don't belong in a PvP game. So
yeah, absolutely. So my mod or concept or my list of to kill will be those people who, you know, you just described. I mean, if healer is not a class, then what is the next best class to kill? Well, if it's guy who's driving my price down, then yeah, I'm okay with that.
But what I'm saying is, so like for an example, in EVE, it's an acceptable tactic to hold somebody hostage, threatening to blow up their ship if they don't pay you or dump your cargo. You know, and some other games are starting to have that too. I mean, what's that other game that's out there right now? But anyway, you know, could you do that by capturing a location and the crafters that are there and make them work for you? Because it's all about controlling resource points. Controlling the mine, controlling the keep, controlling the log processing facility. You know, can you also control the people if you capture them? You know, it's either you die or you work for us. You know.
Well, doesn't that come into travel as well? Like if you've got a Hearthstone, how do you really keep somebody there? So will we not have that option? Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you know, because instant travel's kind of in fashion.
Well, and I think that they can't. I don't think there's going to be fast travel in any way, shape, or form, or what's the point of having caravans?
Yep.
Good point. Very interesting. Of course, a lot of great speculation, and I think that ultimately it's going to be very interesting to see how cutthroat the economy and the trading and you know the resource gathering is going to be. And of course, there's so many questions that we have. You know, with every reveal, it seems like we have more questions than we have answers. But
and like they're saying in chat, they're talking about, well, what's the export rules between worlds?
Yep.
We've really only been talking about within a world.
Zone in. We've only been talking about moving from into the zone. What can I take with me, and what are my loss representations of dying in that world?
Yeah.
It doesn't say when I can leave, and it doesn't. And no one said that once I go to one world, I have to stay there until I die or until the game ends. So you got to be able to head back sometime. So do you have to head back naked? You know, well, that's actually pretty good because I can sell you more stuff when you get back to the Eternal Realms, I guess. But
he's got no money in his pockets. He just got robbed.
These are my PvP pants. Hold on.
Yeah, he's got money in his guild hall, or he can ask a friend. That's what, you know, if he needs pants. But again, there's so much speculation, and again, I keep reading them over and over again, trying to squeeze more interpretation out of them. But I'm really hoping for, you know, another 6 or 7 pages of FAQ on the econ section soon.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, one other thing that we know about crafting, and of course we've speckled a lot of speculation into this section already, but I want to talk about the way they're going to do recipes. I think Franklin alluded to this earlier, but about the idea of having fluid recipes. Another quote from the FAQ. For example, if you have a single recipe for plate helm in your list, the requirements are 3 metal and 1 cloth, 1 leather, and 1 additive element. The player can choose which tiers of those resources to put in these slots, as long as the slots are filled with something valid. The recipe will craft. Now, they can even add something special to the additive slot to alter the item in a significant way. This reduces our recipe count by about 90%, and every recipe in the Crowfall player book remains useful. Moreover, the result is more varied, and it's going to be up to the player to figure out the right combination of reagents to produce the desired results. So the idea of having fewer recipes, actually creating more diversities. Now you guys we've talked a lot, I know, in some of our offline chats about this concept. So Bill, why don't you kind of talk to us a little bit about what this fluid recipe idea means for Crowfall?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely the right direction. It gives that, you know, we all know the, you know, standard recipes that we're sort of used to from other games, how so many of them are just useless. There's really no, you know, you're really in a lot of cases grinding them out for experience and then burning them in some way, either vending them or, you know, Lord knows you can't sell them to other players because they're doing the same thing. But so in this case, I think the idea is if it plays out in some sort of discovery or experimentation, the only thing I wonder, or that I'm concerned with is will there be, you can make, this plate helm out of copper and infuse it with, leather or something, and we know there's going to be different variants of those types of basic resources. So, gold or iron or copper will all count as a metal. So will there be an acceptance for anything less than the best version of that? I think, players have come to this place where we just reduce everything down to a database entry and a calculation. So
right.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Well, I get it, because you're like, well, this one's a green, so it's throwaway. It's not. This isn't the best of the best, so it's worthless.
Min-max, yeah.
Yeah. Now with item decay, that's a factor we know on at least several worlds, and so if that's the case, like, well, maybe that item is my everyday plate helm, but when it's time to fight whatever it is special, maybe that's when I pull out my rare plate helm that I know is better and more durable, but I'm going to take it off for my everyday fighting because I just need its power occasionally, and I don't want it to die any sooner than it has to. So that's the only thing, the viability of things that are crafted beyond the best. Like, if I do have a pile of copper, can I get something usable out of it? Will someone want it? Or will the only things that matter be the best things? So the economy has a lot to do with that and how we earn money. I don't even think we've even talked about currency in the game yet, but
I hope there's gold.
Yeah, and glory.
I hope there's gold, because
we will look like schmucks if it's copper and glory.
I hope there's gold, but you're right, because I think that touches to what we talked about earlier, Bill. That creating an open-ended crafting system is such a hard thing to do because of these very questions you're asking. So I think you're right on. First of all, does it turn out to be? Yeah, we have an unlimited amount of recipes, but really only 12 of them are useful.
Yeah,
no one's going to want anything else.
Right.
Well, I kind of see the system. I'm sorry to jump in, but I see this system is going to be more about what the material does for the item than a stat spread. Because typically what you have in games where you have the greens, the blues, the purples, it's all about the stats, right? So you only have a single recipe that makes the best sword on the server or the best helm on the server is a single recipe because it produces the best stats. I kind of foresee that the system they're making, at least I hope, is the materials you put into it affects how long the item will last. Sure. The quality, the durability. It's not going to be so much about stat spread. You can make the same item out of any material, and it's just going to be how good it is for how long. Like you said, you pull out your best helm for special fights because it's going to last a little bit longer. Maybe it has a tiny bit more stats to it, but not so much that you would never use the other helm. At least that's what I'm kind of envisioning is what they're going to do is the stat spread is not going to be that big between materials. But with item decay, taking damage, repairability, you make it out of copper, it's probably not going to last very long, but it's nice and cheap to make. But it's going to be just as well to protect you for that 1 or 2 battles, where your steel helm may last 5 or 10 battles. Obviously, these numbers are ambiguous, but I'm kind of seeing that's where they're kind of going when you look at their base metal chart, and it's talking about the 0.2 to 0.4 differences.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of the Walmart version of shopping. Yeah, I got this T-shirt for $5, and it lasted 2 washes before it had a hole in it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. The other thing I wanted to add there was, in terms of, Franklin, this is sort of your area, the idea of a spreadsheet or a matrix of combinations and things, and is that going to be a factor in how crafting works with these fluid recipes? Like, is it finite, or will these additives, or will there be RNG that factor into it, and will the crafter have some control over mitigating the RNG, all those things? Like, I ultimately don't want there to be a finite list of things that can be built, if possible. Again, that's hard. Like you said, open-ended crafting is hard.
I won't share it with you then. I mean, if you don't want to know,
I will have a spreadsheet.
I'm not going to force you to know. But just there are 1,728 combinations just using the 3 spots on the helm. Yeah. That's just from what we know right here. That's mixing pure metals, with the alloys, there are 12 options. You know, there's 5 base metals. There are 9. You know, yeah. So I mean, 5 and 9 and whatever. Actually, I may be a little off on that, but I mean, there's 1,800 or more.
Slow down.
So and there, are there the same amount of cloth options? You know what I mean? Right. So there are 7 alloy types. There are 5 base metals. That's 12 different types of iron, ingots that you can put. So if I just choose 3 copper or 2 copper in this, there's 1,700 different options just for the ore side. Now, if there are 12 cloth options and 12 leather options, we are now looking at 240,000 different options to create a helm. And that's not counting additives and flux. Now, I could be completely wrong on this. I really could be. But just looking at the base math and looking at the combination chart, that's the numbers I'm getting. And so this brings me back to me is that I was extremely excited about Guild Wars Discovery System. Was anyone else excited about that when we didn't know anything about it and they showed it? And
extremely excited.
I have all this stuff and who knows what I will make.
And all I wanted to do was kill the Shatterer.
Yeah, it's like, and the funny thing is like, and then when you go to the screen, it will force you to find all the discoveries, because if you have combinations, well, then you can use them. If you're missing something from a combination, it won't allow you to craft. And I'm like, well, that's not really discovery. That's like adult granimals. Match these things together.
That's what
and
it felt like.
You've got an outfit. I want to discover. I want to fail. I want to succeed. And my successes should be able to help my guild and my faction keep the hunger at bay. And if they can give me that, and the complexity that I have to work with other people who are skilled at gathering, skilled at transportation, and skilled protectors to get me from point A to point B, then this game is going to be very sticky. I think it's going to have stuff. I mean, I guess it's just it's still so nebulous on the. We talked earlier in chat. What about the resources? Is gathering something going to be a learned skill, and do I get better at it? Yeah. Do I get better at gathering the more that I gather? Do I get better at hammering in something when I bring my hammer down on the forge? And those unknowns, I think, really impact the fluid recipe set, because base materials seem to have quite a mathematical impact on at least what we saw so far on the crafting screen.
Well, and even take it a little bit farther there, James, because you're talking about your personal effect based on what you're doing. I'm hoping with the fact that we have controlled areas, controlled zones, controlled things, if there's 10 people at the mine, 5 of them can mine, how does that change the amount that comes out of it?
Absolutely.
Where there's only 1 person can mine and there's 10 people there. And how does everybody benefit from the fact that we own the mine? Does everybody get a little something? Or is it only the miners? And how has that changed the economy? So like you said, tons of unknowns. And how does that separate you out as a crafter? Because I'm going to assume that if you're a miner, you can't be a weaponsmith or you can't be a helm. Hopefully there's enough division in what you can do that it's not like a lot of games, I can go from getting it out of the ground to the final product all by myself, right?
Right.
So anyway.
So what I'm gathering from this is, first of all, Anres, you're a math wizard, dude. My head hurts. Like I said, when I get to Guild Wars 2, I just ooh, the Shatterer looks cool. I want to kill it. And you've got all this other stuff, figured out. That's impressive.
I have the spreadsheets for Guild Wars 2.
You guys math. You guys math good. That's why I hang around with you guys. I need smart people like you so that I can go on the field and win and take all the glory. See, that's how that works.
There you go.
Now, we could talk about this particular subject about the diversity in crafting for a long time. What I want to do, though, is I want to kind of talk a little bit about kind of the X factor. And what I mean by the X factor here is the idea of the concept of thralls. So what are thralls? So thralls are obtained in the world while participating in campaigns, and they're like the spirit of dead heroes. For example, you could bind the soul of a dwarven forge master to a hammer, making the weapon more effective. Now, this is kind of a kind of a curveball, because we talk a lot about player crafting and how important it is for players to be known as crafters. Does this concept of being able to capture these thralls, throw them on your items, and suddenly making them more powerful, can this system coexist with the player-driven crafting, or is now RNG becoming too important? What do you think, Bill? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we don't know. I don't think we know anything yet about, the items that are considered loot, or that drop. And I don't know how these thralls will work. How will you earn them? Or are they going to be considered soul-bound? Like only,
Right.
would the player have to go out and earn them himself? But my bigger concern is that, is it just okay? So a crafter has gone through all the machinations to collect resources and build and come up with this great weapon, and then it's not good unless you have thrall X, and will that be the one factor that kind of prevents like when that weapon's crafted? Is it something you can equip right away and it's automatically what you want and it's better? Or one of the things Blizzard's done in the recent expansion with WoW is they've backed off a lot of the customization stuff like reforging and gemming, because it wasn't that fun. It was just a list of things you then need to do once you have your item. And are thralls, do they have the potential to be that? We don't know how different they're going to be, and is there going to be a long list, and is there just, oh yeah, Fey Assassin, you need this one, and that's just the end of it? Because that will, I think, minimize the potential impact of the output of crafting itself. But I'm excited to hear more. Obviously, we totally don't know enough, but that's what I'm worried about a little bit.
Right, and I think it also depends on how powerful the thralls are. We don't know if it's critical to have those equipped or not. I mean, is this concept of thralls something that is going to turn the tide of battle or not? So that is a big question that I have. If they're too powerful, it's going to be problematic, because it could undermine the value of crafting and overemphasize the value of the RNG in how they're dropped, if that's how they're dropped in the world. Or if they're too weak, it just becomes kind of an annoying side system that nobody's really going to use. So again, balancing this is going to be difficult. Andres, what do you think?
Like everything else, I have a lot more questions than answers on thralls. But if we look at the crafting page, where we see where you put it all together and hit a button, there's a salvaging tab. Right? So we don't know anything about thralls. We don't know how they're dropped. We don't know if they're bind on equip. We don't know if I sit there and, backstab Arrowwolf enough times and die, can our characters become thralls? I mean, can where do all these dead heroes come from? Well, we're heroes, right? So for all we know, if I let lethality die enough, I can pick something up and add it to my sword. So that adds a lot of funness here.
Could this be something that's farmed through PvP then? Interesting.
I don't know.
Because a Dwarven Forge Master is a playable archetype.
Race. It's a playable archetype.
Had not thought of that. That's a good point.
And so instead of, on rare occasions, maybe that drops from the engagement. My biggest thing is that I've created the ultimate weapon, but now I figured out a new pattern for a more ultimate weapon. Can I salvage this, and are thralls salvageable? Or do they only appear on the field at that one time and that's it? So
very good question.
You know what I mean? So we don't know when. Can we get someone in chat real quick? Run back, click the salvage tab for us real quick, and then take another screenshot and send that out. That'd be great. Thanks. But because that changes everything.
Put them to work.
You remember you were saying that if they're too powerful, they change some needs of crafters. If they are recoverable, then crafters come back into play. Because maybe I can become very skilled at salvaging, and then someone only takes their weapons to me to salvage because I have the best chance to get the thrall that only happened that one time that came out.
Very interesting. Good point.
So, creating a link between the skills and the result, that's what we want to see on crafting. Creating a link between skills and the result for gathering, for salvaging, who knows? But I mean, it's not a huge jump in logic to think that, if they're going to put that much thought into crafting, why wouldn't they put that much thought into skill-based results for other items related to the economy?
Yeah, good point. Good point. Franklin, what's your thought on this?
So I kind of looked at the thralls a little differently than being combat affecting. So if they're the spirit of a dead hero, then in my mind, you're going to get something that spirit was able to do or represented. Maybe it just puts a glowy effect on your item. Maybe it gives that item a name that has history that's now desirable because you return it somewhere and now it does something for you. You know, maybe it's a family heirloom, so now there's this side thing that doesn't affect combat, but because you have this thrall thing attached, you know, you go off and do something. Or maybe if you have the Stoneforge's thrall on your weapon and you're not a Stoneforge, you get some kind of attribute from the Stoneforge. Maybe you get a +1 strength attribute, you know, not overpowering to the fact that you own the weapon, but it gives you something from something you wouldn't have. Maybe if you had the Fey or the Assassin thrall, you could go invis or go into the shadow for 5 seconds or something. Something silly that wouldn't really affect something too much, but it's basically you're playing on what the spirit can do. I don't want to see it affecting stats. I don't want it to be something that, like you said, oh, I got to have this thrall and only this thrall so I can have the best item on the server. It would totally destroy the system, even if you could salvage it, unless they were so limited that now they were targets for PvP.
Yeah.
And you said, oh,
Right.
That guy's got a thrall. We have to take him out because we need to get that out of the enemy's hands. You know, if they brought something like that in, then maybe, you know. But it has to be limited. Maybe one of them's a thrall that if you die in combat, normally you lose your weapon. Well, maybe the spirit, now that you put that thrall in there, returns it to your home base 5 times before the spirit expires.
I think it's also interesting to add that the thrall discussion came up while we were talking about crafting. You know, crafting. And in the reference of the Dwarven Forge Master talked about the person's hammer. Now, is hammer his weapon, or is hammer what he's using to craft something? Could thralls be added if I'm a crafter and I'm making metal items and I have a hammer that I use on my forge? Can I put a thrall in my crafting hammer? Could I put a thrall in my my pick for mining? You know, I mean, who knows where these secondary attributes and bonuses can come from?
Great questions, guys. Great questions. We're down to probably our last 5 minutes or so, and we've talked about a lot of things we know about the game. But what I like is that we sprinkled in a lot of great speculation. But I want to do a little round table. I want to go around and talk about some of the things we don't know. And so what I want to do is just kind of go around the panel here, just to kind of close this out, and bring up one, maybe 2 things at the most. Things that you really would like to know, things that are really critical in your mind to crafting. Bill, let's go ahead and start with you. What are a couple things that you really are wanting to know about Crowfall Crafting that we haven't really heard much on yet?
So I think related to crafting, I'd like to know more about what's going to allow me to make trades and become sort of that merchant, meaning how will items or resources or whatever be carried? We know that there's going to be, there's going to be 2 types. There's going to be the materials and somebody help me out. What are the
processing facilities?
Yeah.
No, the 2 types of resources you can have for the personal and anyway, but the what I really want to know is our locations, like how will I be able to transport these things, overworld, and will I have to store them? Was there going to be some magical central bank that I can, or warehouse that I can use, or is there going to be regionally? What kinds of and then like we talked about earlier, what merchant sort of interactions will we have? Will I be able to run a player store, hire an NPC merchant, on consignment to sell my things? Will I literally have to travel the countryside and with a cart and sell my goods? So I'd love to know more about the merchant and trade aspects of crafting.
Good questions. James, what about you?
My top ones mainly would be, what is the what is going to be the mechanic or method for me to become even more skilled? There's not going to be true leveling as we thought, but what can I do to increase my success rate of mining? Can I be a good gatherer and can I be a good crafter, or is it is it going to be very specific in skill set? And the other thing is, we saw a few of the advantages and disadvantages related to the character. Will there be crafting related to advantages and disadvantages? And if so, what would they be, and what use could they be? I mean, if you're a player that never is going to plan to craft much, and you can take a huge disadvantage saying, can't tell the difference between gold and tin. Does colorblind mean you can't combine things very well at the forge? Who knows? So, I mean, I'm just interesting. I like how they got the advantages and disadvantages. I'd like to see how that plays out maybe in some of the choices for crafting.
What would you like to know about Crowfall Crafting? Something that they haven't really touched on yet.
For me, let's see here. I think the biggest thing I want to understand is the relationship between worlds and the crafting. Is there going to be control zones that are on this world that is the only place you can get that resource? Kind of like, the example we talked about earlier, a diamond mine is only on this area, but you have to take the diamonds to the next world over to craft them in certain things. How is that controlled? Now, we know there's export and import in certain rule sets, but how does that affect taking it? Can I make it into a final product, then take it between worlds? Can I only take it between worlds if it's a refined product? Or can I only take it if it's a raw goods? And then
and
how
salvaging.
do you carry it?
Chief, I didn't even think about that. But I mean, if you can't take raw ore or ingots between materials, but you can take weapons, well, are you going to then Kmart it up like Mike, like Airwolf had said, and take over tons of swords and then just salvage them and just take the loss because copper is so more valuable on this other realm, and it's worth taking the loss of overall head count just to get copper into a realm that maybe doesn't have any?
Those are all very good questions, and I think that interrelationship between worlds and how crafting works is kind of going to help answer a lot of the questions and a lot of the things we talked about today, and that's why I would really like to get some idea of how movement between worlds and maybe more importantly between campaigns, if those worlds have different campaign lengths. So if you have a campaign over here that's a year long, and this campaign over here is only a month long, but you're not allowed to move between them, how does that change the dynamic of the entire game? Or if you can move between them, how does that change the dynamic of crafting? So,
right, absolutely. My big question is related to something that Andres had touched on earlier, the whole caravan concept. Now, we've played games where you've had to escort caravans, but not where they were humans. These were actual players. These were actual players that are doing this caravan. Or that's what my hope is. Is it going to be a viable profession to escort crafters? We see this in Eve, where you've got, if you're going to move items from one place to another, you need people to guard your stuff. That's really my big question in crafting is I can spend all day long farming diamonds, but how am I going to get them to my bank? How am I going to take those items that I've now collected and not walk around like a sitting duck with them sitting in my backpack where, Anres can come and backstab me and take them away? So that's my big question in crafting. It's going to be very interesting to see how that works out. But we are going to have to end the conversation here, gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is a great place to end the conversation. Those of you watching live or listening on the internet or subscribe on iTunes, we do encourage you, as always, to let us know what you think. We encourage you to follow us on Twitter at Golden Glory PC. Tweet us some questions, stuff you'd like to talk about. Visit our Facebook page at Golden Glory Podcast there on Facebook. And, of course, all previous episodes and this one very soon will be up on our website, goldenglorypodcast.com. And for our host, Anres, where can people find you on the interwebs, sir?
The best place to find me is on Twitter. It keeps my rants to 140 characters or less, which I think is better for my mental health. And I actually prescribed by my doctor to keep my rants short. So Anrez, ANHREZ. You can follow me. MMO Econ PvPer is my handle.
Very good. Bill, how can people find you, sir?
Uh-oh.
We lost the Bill.
Did we lose the Bill?
No, sorry. Bill, Bill had a mute button on again. Look at that. So you can find me at real_lethality on Twitter. That's probably the best place also, just because, again, 140 characters for good or bad is probably enough for most things. But definitely tweet me some questions and tweet all of us some questions. We want to start really addressing those.
Very good. And, of course, Mr. Chief Sarkhan, where can people find you, sir?
Well, as we've already put out there, I am Chief Sarkhan. You can find me with Chief Sarkhan on pretty much any social media. Most of them is Chief_Sarkhan. If you don't find it there, it's Chief Sarkhan, all one word, like my YouTube. But yeah, get on Twitter, get over on Crush the Throne, get on our forums, let us know what you want to hear about, because we're here to discuss Crowfall in all its glory for you and answer the questions you want while we speculate our own ideas.
Absolutely, absolutely. Of course, I am Aerowolf, a.k.a. Mike. You can follow me on Twitter at Aerowolf, ARAWULF, or you can catch some of my thoughts on my website, wolfden.com, WULFDEN.com. For more MMORPG streams, of course, this is a great channel. We do appreciate MMORPG.com
yeah, thanks, MMO.
Hosting us. We do appreciate that very much. We do appreciate all the retweets and all the support we've had from people in the community. A lot of you guys are here. Thank you so much. Your receptiveness of us and our cast has been amazing. Thank you so much. We are looking forward to the game very, very soon. And of course, for all of you listening, if you're ready for new shows, we are bi-weekly. We do these shows every other Tuesday, right at this same time, same bat channel. And hopefully in the future, we can continue to help you in your quest for gold and glory. Take care, everybody.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Later, all.
And